It's not enough just to stand and stare. Was it as simple as that, Bill Dale?
You know what? That's stuck with us. We came up with that phrase very early on. I'll admit I stole it from a Pink Floyd song, but I changed it slightly so David Gilmour can't sue me. And in reality, that has held the whole thing together because at the end of the day, if we didn't do anything about it or hadn't done anything about it, we would still have the same problem that everybody else has in the world. And amazingly, we seem to be about 10, 12 years ahead of everybody else. So the Isle of Man has set a world standard, which is quite fantastic. I never thought that would happen in the beginning.
What was the pollution like in those days?
The first beach we tackled was at Kirkmichael. And then the following week we went to Balaf, and that was where we had 6 weeks in a row, 6 weekends in a row, and collected 30,000 pieces of plastic. And it was buried about 2 feet deep into the sand. And clearly nobody had done anything about it for a very long time. And it was on a massive scale. And that still exists in lots of places around Britain now. So people have just not really tackled it in the same way that we have.
Every time, this is almost like peeling an onion, because every time you peel back a bit of Beach Buddies, it goes much deeper. And it started off with a man picking up plastic on a beach in Kirkmichael, and suddenly you've learnt so... I mean, you must have got right to the heart of this matter over 13 years.
I'm glad it's developed quite slowly. I'll be honest with you, for the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't even tell anybody what I was doing because we all understand this. There was a stigma attached to picking up other people's rubbish. And I didn't particularly think I'd tell everybody that I was spending my weekends on beaches picking up junk, basically. And then after a while, I thought, I can't do this on your own. It's impossible. There's 100 miles of beaches in the Isle of Man. So I asked for a little bit of help on social media, and suddenly I realised that there were a lot more people out there who cared than I actually realised.
But what led you to? You said a bit of a stigma about picking up rubbish on the beach. What led you to think, actually, this needs doing, and I'm the bloke to do it?
I don't know, really. It's just basically a straight thought inside my head. Nobody's doing anything about this. I'm going to have a go.
Social media helped, didn't it?
Social media made a big difference. And once we launched, the first event we ran had 35 people on one beach. And then I ran an event in the north the following weekend, and there was another 45. So I had 75 in the space of a fortnight. And I dreamt, I wonder if we could end up with maybe 200 or 300. And by the end of that first year, it was 1,500. And just recently, 3 weeks ago, we reached 15,000 different volunteers.
Out of a population of?
85,000.
That's... as you say, if you thought of that back in 2006, it would have...
Oh, I wouldn't have even dreamed. I mean, I dreamed of having... I mean, I actually admit to myself that I thought, I might just get 500, be ambitious and go for 500. 15,000.
It's a very simple premise. You get people of a like mind on a beach on a Sunday morning for an hour and a half, picking up rubbish, bagging it and getting rid of it.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about it is that I bump into people, even in reception in your office here today, there's people who say, I can't come out on a Sunday for whatever reason, but we're picking up rubbish here, there and everywhere, and I know that there are thousands, tens of thousands more people, and I see them in the streets now. I mean, you'll notice that people are out picking up rubbish in glens and parks and roads. It's not just beaches, and the hiking trails. The side of the roads doesn't have as much rubbish as it used to, so it's captured the imagination in a way I never thought it would.
In a way, it is, on a personal level, it's cathartic because you feel, I don't know, I feel great about picking rubbish up. I like making things appear neat and tidy.
Yes.
So I'm not alone.
No, not at all. No, and it's broken the chain, I think. I think there's suddenly, as I say, the stigma has been removed. I remember being told at school when I was pretty poor at maths, my maths teacher said to me, you'll end up being a bin man if you don't book your ideas up. But that was an insult. He was saying to me, he was treating me as if I was going to end up being what they considered, or he considered to be the lowest of the low, a man who picks up rubbish. And do you know what? I have the most fantastic respect for these guys because they are picking up the junk and the nasty, horrible stuff that we leave lying around. And I have the most respect for bin guys. They are just fantastic.
If you want to get in touch with Bill Dale, by the way, the text line is open, 166 177. You can email studio@manxradio.com. If you want to talk to Bill, then by all means call us on 66 13 68. Now, Beach Buddies provide all the equipment. Really, all you have to do is pitch up at whichever location.
That's right. Yeah, and any age, families in particular, we like. We spend a lot of time talking in schools, and it's great when the children that I see in schools during the week bring their parents at the weekend. It's an activity that they can take part in. So if they're, for instance, going to watch the children play football or cricket or hockey, they have to stand on the line and hang around for a couple of hours. Well, with this, they join in. And that breaks another barrier as well. And they almost all, almost to a person, say, you know, I really enjoyed it and I wasn't expecting to.
Bill's got a very big announcement, which we're going to do in a moment. But first of all, in this equation, there are baddies.
Yes.
There are the villains
Yes.
in this. So
Yes.
if you imagine a white knight and a black knight, I want to talk about the black knights now.
Okay.
For decades, the people who have polluted.
Yes.
Who are they? How do we stop them?
What people need to understand is that when rubbish is found on the beach, you have to think about how it actually got there. And a lot of people used to say that it's because people are on the beach, they're walking along, and they just throw the junk while they're walking on the beach. That is not true at all. It all comes down rivers. And if you think about it, if you throw a piece of rubbish anywhere, doesn't matter how far you are from the sea, it'll go down a drain, it'll go into a stream and into a river system, out to sea and on the beach. And 85% of all rubbish is coming down rivers. So what our campaign now is not just to pick it up or collect it even in rivers like some fancy multi-million-pound schemes that are around. It's actually to go to the children and say, if you throw a piece of rubbish in your playground, it's potentially going to kill animals at sea, seabirds, fish, whales, dolphins, whatever. And suddenly they understand. And that is where we are miles and miles ahead of everybody else. And as there's one huge scheme being launched by these people in Netherlands, I think they've got $130 million collected, and all they're interested in is making money. They keep talking about it as an environmental issue. It is all about making money.
And that's where the public sometimes narrow their eyes.
Yes.
And they spot business in this.
Yes.
You're not about business, are you?
No. At the moment, we're all about education. I mean, that is the key to this whole thing, is to talk in schools as we do. And that's where people are looking on us as having taken the lead, because we have just thought it through and got to the point where that is the way to stop it, is to stop the children and adults, everybody, disposing of rubbish irresponsibly. It is a community problem. It's not a government problem. It's a community problem. We are the ones who are throwing the rubbish in the street. It ends up in the ocean. Therefore, it demands a community response.
Now, I've got lots of Irish friends. You've got lots of Irish friends.
I have.
But we need to talk about the River Liffey.
Yes. Right. If you go to the west coast of the Isle of Man and pick up rubbish, the chances are that the majority of the rubbish you find has got an Irish label on it. And that's because the prevailing wind is southwest. We also find things like this year we found a coconut, and not just a coconut that you buy in a shop, coffee beans. We found plastic ducks identified from a shipwreck off South America. So the whole of the Gulf Stream coming through the Atlantic is ending up, amazingly, in the Isle of Man. We had a message in a bottle from Newfoundland. So, but you're right, there you talk about the Liffey. All the rubbish that's being thrown inland in Ireland is ending up on our beaches. But by the same token, you think about it, the stuff and say somebody dumps something in Crosby and it comes out of the River Glass here. Where's that going to end up? In Blackpool and Morecambe and places like that. And in fact, we went to Ravensglass to set up a branch of Beach Buddies, and we found milk cartons, Isle of Man milk cartons on the beach. So we all need to think about what we're doing with our rubbish. It's as simple as that.
And that's happening all over the world, because there are, is it 3 big vortices in the Pacific Ocean?
Yes.
Those big, basically...
Gyres, I think they call it.
They are hundreds of miles wide, and they're basically big whirlpools.
One of them is the size of Spain.
Of rubbish, just
Yes.
plastic,
That's right.
whizzing round in the
That's right.
Pacific Ocean.
And it's congealed in a big lump in the centre. Around the outside, it's the microplastics, small pieces about the size of your fingernail. And as it gets closer together, it's all tangled up with fishing gear and all sorts of stuff. And it is absolute. It is a chaos, absolute chaos.
Talking of fishing gear, do you find much fishing debris on the beaches?
The 85% that we talked about comes down rivers is from just domestic rubbish, packaging and things like that. 10% is fishing gear. But in terms of weight, then that's a whole different story. There's a big percentage in weight terms because it's big stuff like ropes and nets and fish boxes. I'm not really too happy with the fishing industry because they don't, this doesn't seem to end. There's a lot less domestic waste on the beaches now than there ever was, but the fishing gear is just the same as it always was. So that percentage stays. It has actually increased by volume of everything.
How does that how does that end? How do you stop irresponsible fishing businesses out at sea lobbing plastic into the?
I know DEFRA are talking to them about a policy to try to change things. But they're not all Manx ships either. This time of year when all the scallop boats are out, they're not all from the Isle of Man. So it's a difficult one to challenge because, again, what is the fishing industry driven by is money. And I don't think they really particularly care too much about their environment, which is very sad considering that's where they're making their living.
It's 18 minutes past midday with Bill Dale today. Somebody said there's an upside to having OCD. People who collect rubbish. Well, I suppose that's a job for anybody who's OCD. I think I'll fall into that.
Yeah, me too.
The island should go the same way as Holland and Germany, where it's very hard to buy anything that doesn't have a return charge built in.
I agree entirely.
But when a tin of bottled, when you put a bottled item, you charge, but get the money back when you bring it to the supermarket, put it through a recycling machine. Also, if you buy a beer, juice or coffee, you get charged 50 cents and given a token. Bring the container and token back and you get 50 cents back. Clean streets, roads and beaches. Where does that happen?
Where does that happen? It's certainly Denmark and Germany and Scandinavia. At the moment, we're talking to a local sponsor about having one of these machines. They're not cheap. It's about 11,000 quid. But there is talk about a company sponsoring a deposit return system machine on the Isle of Man. It's a reverse vending, they call it.
Bizarre how that goes around in circles. Back in the 60s, people used to go around collecting pop bottles.
Yes, that's what I did, yeah.
It's the third job, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. And I lived in St John's and my dad ran the shop, so it was fantastic to go in and get you two old pence on a bottle.
How weird that everything has got... Because in those days, again, deposit on glass bottles, paper bags people had.
That's right.
And I'm not being too sexist, but mums had shopping bags.
That's right.
They didn't get... And nobody ever asked for plastic bags. Nobody ever asked for plastic bottles.
No.
Industry just brought those in.
It makes you wonder really how all of these things have actually managed to happen. When you go to the supermarket now, I don't think there's anything hardly that comes without some sort of a wrapping, polystyrene or plastic. I mean, it's all changed and it's been thrown upon us. It's not been through people requesting that. That's just the way the system operates. But the great thing is people are changing. You do see supermarkets now are giving out paper bags rather than plastic, and you can go and buy loose potatoes and vegetables quite often now. So that people have just got to change. It's not as if it's rocket science or expensive. And the deposit return system, it's a no-brainer because nobody loses. Everybody's a winner.
Adrienne said, hi Andy, Bill, just wanted to let you know, when I was in junior school, I was a member of the Anti-Little League with a badge and a certificate. Stayed with me all my life. I don't throw rubbish anywhere except in a bin, and maybe getting children involved like that would help educate people as well. Great to hear someone well respected as Bill Dale is. Terrible at maths, called thick and stupid by teachers.
He was.
And look what Bill. I'm not sure that's a compliment.
I did pass my maths exam eventually. I just struggled when I was about 11 or 12.
Well, we have to say, I mean, I'll spare his blushes. Bill's a very highly respected journalist and very much involved in newspapers as well, on the business side as well. Bill has got a very big announcement concerning Beach Buddies, and that's in a moment. Bill Dale formed Beach Buddies. It's been on for 13 years.
The Nation Station.
And the big announcement.
Manx Radio.
Add some Manx culture, colour and flair to your Christmas shopping list at Manx National Heritage Shops with decorations, cards and gifts inspired by our beautiful island.